Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're dissecting the platform economics and the sheer digital architecture behind Uber's staggering global scale. Seriously, forget whatever you thought you knew about ride-hailing, because today we're breaking down an absolute masterclass in how to build an invisible digital infrastructure that essentially coordinates the physical world. Let's get into it.
To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this machine, we have to start right here, with this massive number. $162.77 billion. That represents Uber's total gross bookings for the year 2024. I mean, to put that into perspective, that translates to over 11 billion completed trips, with more than 30 million people interacting with their algorithms every single day. This right here is exactly what it looks like when a marketplace business model successfully monetizes its density.
So, here's our syllabus for today's masterclass. 1. The core matching engine. 2. A multi-stream revenue ecosystem. 3. The competitive platform moats. 4. The autonomous mobility horizon. And 5. The Uber for X playbook.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the core matching engine.
It's honestly wild to look at the stark contrast between the old world and the new, isn't it? On one hand, you had the incredibly heavy friction of legacy taxis, limited medallions, central radio dispatchers, fumbling around in the backseat for cash. And on the other hand, you have Uber's incredibly asset-light model. No owned cars, no employed drivers, just clean, instantaneous digital logic connecting supply directly with demand. They literally stripped away the friction and figured out how to monetize the coordination itself.
And this is the absolute magic of their AI routing process. It takes all that chaotic human coordination and turns it into an invisible infrastructure that executes in under 2 seconds. You press request, it pulls your GPS, ranks the drivers by ETA, pings the best match, and locks it all in, ending with a completely frictionless auto payment. Keep in mind, it took 15 years and billions of dollars to make a transaction this complex feel like absolutely nothing to the user.
Moving on to part 2. A multi-stream revenue ecosystem.
Now, the crucial point to understand here is that Uber is no longer just a ride-sharing app. Not at all. It's evolved into a highly diversified, three-sided marketplace. That exact same underlying dispatch algorithm now powers traditional mobility, food delivery via Uber Eats, trucking logistics through Uber Freight, and even a massively lucrative advertising business called Journey Ads. It's brilliant. You build the infrastructure once, and you monetize it multiple times over. So if we look at where the roughly $44 billion in 2024 revenue actually comes from, you'll see mobility is obviously still the powerhouse at 57%, but look at Uber Eats. It's representing nearly a third of the pie. And honestly, here's the genius of the whole thing. The underlying engine doesn't care if it's moving a passenger or a pizza. It's literally the exact same tech stack, just pointed at a completely different kind of demand.
Okay, now we got to talk about the most controversial, yet economically brilliant part of their entire revenue model, dynamic surge pricing. Simply defined, it's an algorithmic multiplier applied in real time to perfectly balance supply and demand in a live marketplace.
Look, we've all groaned when prices jump during a sudden rainstorm, right? It's super frustrating. But dynamically adjusting those prices is actually a feature, not a bug. Higher fares convince off-duty drivers to jump in their cars and get on the road, which increases supply. Simultaneously, it forces some riders to wait it out, which reduces demand. The system rapidly finds an equilibrium, basically ensuring that a ride is always there for the person who truly, desperately needs it.
Which brings us to part 3, the competitive platform moats.
The elegant simplicity of this equation is basically Uber's ultimate weapon. Think about it. More riders equals shorter wait times for drivers. That attracts more drivers, which leads to much faster pickups for riders. This self-reinforcing loop is the ultimate network effect. It is mathematically impossible for a smaller player to replicate this simply by lowering their commissions. The density itself is the actual product. But beyond just that core density, their fortress is built on all these overlapping moats. They have 15 years of proprietary route data predicting exactly where demand will be. They have massive brand habituation. I mean, Uber is literally a verb at this point. And crucially, they leverage cross-platform bundling. When you have millions of Uber One members locking in perks across both rides and delivery, switching over to a single service competitor just doesn't make financial sense anymore.
Let's shift gears a bit for part 4, the autonomous mobility horizon. Get this, in just 1 quarter alone, Uber paid human drivers a staggering $18.6 billion. Driver payouts make up the vast majority of their gross bookings. This massive number represents the historic margin expansion opportunity sitting right in front of them right now. If they can transition even a tiny fraction of that demand over to robots, their unit economics fundamentally change forever. And you can really see Uber's portfolio approach to this autonomous horizon. Back in 2020, they actually sold off their internal self-driving division. Now, why on earth would they do that? Because rather than burning endless capital trying to build the robots themselves, they intend to just be the indispensable network layer. Through massive expansions with Waymo and strategic partnerships with NVIDIA, Uber is positioning itself to be the ultimate go-to consumer interface for literally all third-party self-driving hardware.
Finally, Part 5, the Uber for X playbook.
So if you're a founder out there building a marketplace right now, here's your playbook. First, you have to solve a visceral, painful physical friction. Don't build for hypothetical problems. Fix something as annoying as standing in the freezing rain waiting for a cab. Second, you got to subsidize supply early on to break that brutal cold start problem. Third, protect your take rate by providing so much underlying technology that suppliers simply can't afford to leave. And finally, design extensible tech. You have to think in platforms, not just single, isolated products.
We're going to end this explainer with a bit of a provocative thought. When the matching engine inevitably outgrows the human driver, who really owns the future of mobility? As autonomous vehicles take over the roads, Uber's true battle isn't going to be against other apps anymore. Their battle will be proving to massive hardware manufacturers that Uber's digital demand network, its ingrained consumer habits, and its routing density is infinitely more valuable than the physical cars themselves. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Let that thought sink in and keep on learning.